Welcome to a new daily top Askreddit video. Today's topic: which one of history's good guys was actually a horrible person? Not necessarily a good guy, but got lots of positive attention from the release of The Greatest Showman. Apparently Pint Barham was a terrible person in real life. The Greatest Showman is the film Pint Barham would release about himself. I remember someone on r/Fixig Movies said the perfect way to end the film would have been to have Pint Barham look directly at the camera, say "and that's how it really happened," wink, and then cut to credits. Imagine looking like this and casting Hugh Jackman to play you. Amazing entrepreneur. Yes. Hilarious scam artist. Also yes. Evil motherfucker. Abso-fucking-lutely. Edit. So from some of the replies, he may not have been very evil, but he certainly wasn't the best. Still think he's an absolute mad lad for some of the stuff he put on exhibition. Considering he's usually attributed the phrase "there's a sucker born every minute." I can kinda see that. Edit. Since I've had like 6 people tell me he didn't actually say that, I'll just put my response to that in the main post. I know, that's why I said he was attributed it and not that he actually was fully on record saying it. Henry Ford was so anti-Semitic that Hitler considered him a hero. Brave New World makes a whole lot more sense now. How? I haven't read the book. America's Dad, Bill Cosby. Who was the mom? Sleeping Beauty. We've been watching 30 Rock in our house lately, and in a recent episode that predated the Cosby revelations by a few years, Tracy Morgan makes a joke about Cosby being a terrible person for assaulting his aunt. That was pretty crazy to hear in context today. 30 Rock has a whole lot of Cosby references and they're almost all negative. As the other guy said, Abel Buris knew. Fun fact, Abel Buris was a writer on 30 Rock, and would go on to blow up this whole Cosby thing years later by making a joke about it in his stand-up. Alfred Hitchcock was an asshole/sexual predator. Tippi Hedren wrote about it in her memoir. She did say he was a brilliant film marker, so you can be both. Luckily, no other famous directors were sexual predators. I've been roaming around this thread looking for this reference. Yo, Hitchcock is so fucked up. He was famous for pulling pranks like chaining a dude up over a long night and giving him a bottle of whiskey laced with serious laxatives, so he shat himself, painfully, in chains, for 12 hours or so. He made the actress from Psycho, Janet Leigh, stand in the shower for almost a week. She only takes baths now. The degree to which he abused Tippi Hedren during that scene from The Birds is well. He literally threw birds at her for 5 days, 8 hours a day, so that they were pissed off and actually attacked her, even after her doctor told him she couldn't take any more. She still has scars. Not to mention the sexual assaults and the threats to ruin her career if she didn't comply. He sent her daughter, Melanie Griffith, a really lifelike doll of her mother, dead in a coffin. She was 8. Dude was fucked. Behind the Bastards does a great couple episodes about him. Those are just the ones I remember off the top of my head from 2+ hours of it. He did send her daughter. What now? No wonder his most famous work was named Psycho, for fuck's sake. Thomas Edison. Biggest monopolist ever and took credit for other people's work. He didn't invent the light bulb but bought the rights and advanced it. He monopolized the film projector plus most films at the time, and it took a very long lawsuit to get that fixed. He took many creations from his employees and put his name on it. This wasn't illegal because of the contracts employees signed at the time, but it's not exactly a sign of goodwill. I don't hate the guy, but his character is often completely exaggerated. Thomas Edison and Henry Ford's winter homes are in my city. As soon as students are in 3rd grade, all the schools would bring us to their homes, and really try to make you believe both of them were good people. Oh, Ford is by far 100 times worse than Edison. Edison was a thief. Ford was a literal Nazi sympathizer. Even received one of Nazi Germany's highest civilian awards and was responsible for writing The International Jew, a major anti-Semitic work that Hitler himself admired. You'd be horrified at how many of our idolized businessmen from the 2020s and 30s were super anti-Semitic, and some of them were full-on fascist. A shorter list would be which of history's good guys were truly good guys and not later found out to be complete $$ holes. Edit. Thank you for the award, stranger. I don't really know what else to say. So, thank you. Curly from the Three Stooges. Typically having several dogs at any given time, Curly was known to come home often with strays he found along his travels. He would foster the strays until he was able to find new homes. And when the Stooges were on tour, Curly made it a point to rehome at least one stray in each town they visited. It is estimated that Curly saved and rehomed more than 5,000 dogs in his lifetime, making him a man before his time with his humane concern for man's best friend. Mr. Rogers. The dude used to fart loudly to make his wife laugh. I mean, not only is that love, but it's one of the purest forms of humor. Babies laugh at farts. Which of history's bad guys were actually good guys? Would be an interesting one. Not everyone sees them as bad guys, but World War II kinda colored the perception a bit. Had the Kaiser's Germany won World War I in a swift operation, as was the original plan, the world would likely be more stable today, and 85 million people that died during World War II would still be alive. France would have ceded some territories, the Austro-Hungarian Empire would have continued on a while longer before disintegrating, etc. Alternatively, had Roosevelt won the presidential election before World War I, we likely would have entered the conflict much sooner and brought things to a quicker and less deadly conclusion, preventing many of the tensions that culminated in World War II. A fast Allied victory would probably lead to the same world as a fast Central Powers victory, once you skip forward a century. Moreover, had the war ended in, say, late 1914 or early 1915, foreign intervention in the October Revolution of 1917 probably would have been far more wide-ranging, and the Tsarist regime likely wouldn't have ended then, but rather a few years down the road in a more peaceful transition to a more democratic regime, similar to other European states. A 20th century without World War II or the USSR is almost incomprehensible, but it is easy to see how much better off we would all be, most likely. This sort of thing is only visible with the benefit of hindsight, sadly. John Lennon. Violent wife beater, vicious and hateful little shitbag. He used to scream at his baby boy when he was crying because it distracted him. Wrote Imagine speaking about dreaming of no possessions, from his multimillion-dollar condo overlooking Central fucking Park in NYC. Didn't speak to George Harrison for months after he published his autobiography because it didn't praise Lennon quite enough for his taste. Absolute piece of shit. Edit 1, hot damn, this blew up like the 4th of July at Kirobile. Thank you all for your comments and opinions. For those who don't believe me, please do not take my word for it. Read his Wikipedia page, all of it. Check out Julian Lennon's interview about his father and how he was treated. Be safe out there, everyone. Don't forget he essentially ended his marriage by lounging around nude with Yoko, who was wearing his wife's robe, when the wife and kids got back from vacation. His response: "Oh, hello. No. That's awful." He didn't need to imagine. Neither did all of those celebrities at the beginning of quarantine. In this thread, a lot of people who were never considered good guys. Unpopular opinion: dog lover and orator Adolf Hitler did some pretty questionable stuff in the 30s. Really changed his ways in the 40s though. Even killed a genocidal dictator. While he almost certainly wasn't the first to say it, Lord Acton once observed that great men are almost always bad men. Pluck any great man from history, those rare figures about whom the story of the human race seems to turn, and you find a monster who changed the world, probably without even intending to do so. It's my estimation that every man ever got a statue made of him was one kind of a son of a bitch or another. Malcolm Reynolds. Depends on what you mean. Judging by today's standards, I'd say most historical good guys were horrible people. Judging by the standards of their era, things become more complicated. Yeah, even abolitionists back in the day may have been against slavery, but that didn't mean they thought blacks should be treated equally. And those abolitionists who did think that people of color should be equal to white folks were effectively shut up by their peers. It was thought that if they asked for equality, the slaves would never be free. It's an interesting thing to think about, but I get upset when people try to pass it off as if there weren't people and groups fighting for equality in that era. There definitely were, but the other abolitionists suppressed their voices as to deal with the larger problem, rather than the underlying problem. I still don't know what was right in that situation, and maybe that's okay, but the situation is a little more complicated than just abolitionists thought that blacks shouldn't be equal. Shout out to John Brown. Steve Jobs was a bit of an ass. A bit. You should read Small Fry. Steve Jobs was a tremendous asshole. He should also read the Walter Isaacson biography. He was a massive tremendous asshole. Literally abandoned his daughter because he didn't want to be a dad. Screaming at people over the shade of yellow on the Google screen on iPhone. Thought he could cure his cancer with diet. He was given a night shift at Atari because he smelled so bad because he thought by eating clean he wouldn't produce any stink. Didn't he die because he refused treatment to cancer? Edit. Yes, apparently he refused loads of treatment for many years until it got worse. He had pancreatic cancer and refused to listen to his doctors for treatment. He thought he was so much smarter and he somehow came to the conclusion that an all-fruit diet would cure him. This was possibly the worst diet you can put your pancreas through and it led to his death. Fun fact, when Ashton Kutcher was getting ready for his role as Jobs in that movie, he ate an all-fruit diet, but had to stop when he was admitted to the hospital because his pancreas started to shut down. He was apparently a real hippie in many ways. Insisted on strange diets. Didn't shower. Washed his feet in the toilet bowl. https://www.psos.com/healthme. Bit was an understatement. The guy was a massive credit hog, abused his employees and normalized a lot of shit business practices that are now used by several other companies.